Whammy slammy bammy. It is Hotline League episode 55.
Cancel the show.
Oh my gosh, guys. This is, I don't want to say it's going to be the greatest show of all time, but it might be the greatest show of all time. Because guess what, guys? There's some crazy stuff that's happening in the offseason. We've got two experts here. They've already independently told me that they know 50 roster trades that they're going to be exposing on the show. That's them, not me. I don't. If they don't follow up on that promise, I don't know. And so we know that Jensen's going to TL. We're gonna have Steve calling into the show to talk to us about the hottest news that's hit the interwebs today. We've got so much more, and guess what? I'm gonna be here's normally this is where I plug the mystery sponsor, and it's still the part where I plug the mystery sponsor because we're gonna announce them later in the show. I know, it's been weeks. People, they're like, yeah, sure, Jensen going to TL, but what you really want to know is who's been sponsoring Hotline League all these weeks. I'm going to go ahead and introduce my constant co-host today, this evening of all time, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark?
Great. I love how we took like 30 seconds to a minute for you to think about what you want your intro to be, and then it was like the exact same as every intro you do, where you say whammy, bammy, zammy, slammy, some like combination of ammies. Took you 30 seconds to come up with that.
He's a method actor. He's got to psych himself up, you know?
Right, yeah.
Not much. This, Travis. You could do this.
Not much is new with me since the last show. It's the off season. It's slow. Yeah, nothing new to really update. Did scouting grounds. That was cool.
I'm not sure you ever have anything to update.
I just updated something. I did scouting grounds.
The world could be ending and you'd be like, yeah, not much with me. Like, world's coming to an end. You know, it's just standard.
Giant pit next to my apartment just ate my car, but
yeah.
Same old.
How was scouting grounds?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think there are some interesting players that should probably get a look at on a lot of academy teams moving forward.
Which of those players will be playing for C9 in the finals at Worlds next year?
None of them.
Okay, well, let's move on to Azael, who is joining us. It's been about a year, I think, since you were last on the show.
That long?
Yeah.
Wow.
Does it feel like it was more recent?
It was like it's still painful.
Yeah. Wake up in cold sweats every night.
What have you worked at all recently?
I mean, I've been at work, kind of just playing League and trying to stay up on all the changes and everything like that.
So that's a no.
Scouting grounds.
Well, because
I'm not cast recently.
Okay, because you went to Worlds.
Yeah.
And then
Worlds was the last thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you went on a trip to Japan, I think, or something, right?
Yep, I went to Japan for a week. It was pretty bomb.
There were a ton of pictures on your social media of you feeding small animals, I think, was mostly what I saw.
Did you mute him, Travis?
No. Can you?
I was talking to Travis at a party on the way back about mute him on social media. How Travis frequently mutes people when they go on trips, especially with significant others, because he just doesn't want to see it.
It's too painful.
Because he's a cold, angry man.
Why should they have happiness when I have none? You know, like that's...
Have you been muted, Mark?
I don't think I've been muted, but we were talking about how he was close to muting Dash with his...
What? We're throwing that out there?
Yeah,
this private, secret information? Dash is going to watch this because, the entire world is watching this. He's going to watch it, and
Dash
he's going to know.
Watch this, but someone is going to send him the clip. So he's
Mark, please.
You didn't mute him, all right? You just said you were thinking about it.
Dash is a wonderful person.
You're lucky, Dash.
These are not the leaks that I was hoping to have on this episode.
If you're wondering why Travis wasn't favoriting anything, your ass was muted.
Dear God. Well, I might have to mute Mark now. Just
wait till my trip's, dude. Then you can mute me.
Yeah, everyone's saying Dark Dash is going to come out of the woodwork and attack me. All right. So interesting week, and most of it has occurred in the past 24 hours, I think. So officially, I believe it was, maybe you guys know this, maybe I don't, but I believe it's 5 p.m. Pacific time today was the moment when like free agency began, because I started seeing everybody tweet around that time, and that's what I had heard. Like Media's tweeting he's a free agent and others.
Yeah, that's what I had heard as well. Initially, I heard midnight last night.
Yeah.
And then I had heard 5 p.m. today.
Yes. And so we're starting to see some of that. I saw DeMonte tweet about how he's a free agent officially. We saw Medios tweet about how he's a free agent. We saw this whole Jensen thing come out. Basically, I think 10 minutes after an article broke from ESPN saying he was in the process. They must have sped up that process really quickly because 10 minutes later they announced that he'd been signed. So that's pretty hype. Kind of reminds me of 2015 when like World Finals ended and immediately the double lift to TSM thing got announced, breaking the League of Legends internet for a while. It's just like such a great way to start the off season, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty hype. I mean, I think it's pretty crazy, right? And I think were this 1 year ago, NC9, like when they didn't have all this success, kind of this goodwill built up, right, from Worlds and from their kind of run, from 10th to finals and everything, then I think everyone would just be hard flaming Jack and hard flaming C9 right now and be really mad about it. But they have some credibility kind of built up. They got some trust built up, so. It's pretty interesting because now I feel like everyone, instead of just flaming C9, is kind of just like, ooh, who did C9 get then, right? Like, who's their mid laner going to be? So the speculation is kind of already beginning.
Are you disappointed if you're a C9 fan, Azael, if it's just Golden Glue?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's not even like a shot at Golden Glue, right? Because people are like, so high up with their expectations now. I've seen more like C9 Faker than anything, even though I'm pretty sure Faker is still signed to SKT according to what I had read. Like my understanding with the SKT stuff was they were rebuilding around Faker. But people are like, their expectations are sky high, right? So Golden Glue is good and he had a solid season, but he's not Faker, and if people are expecting that level of signing, then there's not much you can really live up to there.
I mean, everyone will be disappointed with every roster move if the expectation is Faker.
Yeah.
Unless it's Faker.
That's true. There's one move you can make.
There's one you can do. There's one correct move. Yeah.
There was I just showed the Cloud9 subreddit on screen while you guys were discussing, and it is true that maybe some people are okay with it, and like one thread says, "I have faith." Others are maybe not so happy. They're a little concerned.
Okay.
So
well, at least on Twitter, people seem to. Be having a little faith. I haven't looked at the C9 subreddit or anything like that. I don't usually go to the individual team subreddits.
They're good. They're such a great place for the salt mines to exist. Like you just go there, and then the things that you find out are pretty great.
Yeah, I would say even like having some faith is a pretty good sign when you've lost like your quote unquote franchise mid laner.
And you just made semifinals at Worlds, best result for NA ever, right? Like
the
fact that it hasn't all just exploded and is a good sign.
Well, it's really interesting because you have to wonder what led to his departure. I haven't been able to, I was setting up for the show and some other stuff that we'll talk about later in the show, but I haven't seen any like real messaging around what caused it. You would think like Jack had him, right? Like this is a buyout. This is not, Jensen didn't become a free agent and decided to go to TL. Jack had him as locked in as one of the members. So what led to it? Did he want to leave? Was it just like the offer from Steve was too much for Jack's like, I can retire off of this. This is real money. It's interesting to speculate as to what that could be.
I feel like you have to give them the credit that they think that this move is going to end up being in the best interest of their team, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the moves that they made last season did not look like that, but obviously, hey, then they made semifinals and everyone's like, yep, never mind.
Yeah.
You were right. Good on you, right? So I think you have to wait and see what the pickups look like and what kind of the roster shakeout is going to be, because if they get some big superstar signed, or if there's other pieces fall into place so they can, even if it's not another mid laner, if they can pick someone else up with that extra money, then hey, maybe people start to actually like buy into it a bit more. So I would kind of reserve judgment a little bit. We've seen one move, but I don't think that C9 would just be sitting on only that move, but we'll see.
Well, I've heard a rumor from multiple places that at least one top EU mid is interested in coming to North America. So that's one of the, like, whenever I saw this news break, I was like, are you swapping out one EU mid laner for another over here? It'd be very interesting. So
well, I saw Jack apparently followed a bunch of EU mids or something.
Yeah, like Nuke and Caps and some people like that. So never know.
Yeah. So, by the way, everyone, that's not an official report. All right, I've just heard some rumors. You
official
hear things.
Report here from Travis Gafford Industries.
As you know, Mark and I, we we hear rumors from time to time, and I'm not writing up some article that says report. Sources say this, but it's a rumor that's going around.
We're not Jacob Wolf, all right? We got no one breathing down our neck, being like, "Where are your 2 sources?" I'm like, I got 0 sources, and I'm gonna say it anyways.
Plus, I feel like during off season, there's so much conflicting stuff, right?
Yeah.
That it's like anything I hear, I don't really even believe because half the stuff is just immediately conflicted by something else.
No,
like,
that's true. Yeah.
I'll hear like one player, it's like, yeah, bro, like the team is rebuilding completely around this one player, and then.
Yeah.
Like an hour later, someone else tells me, "Yeah, they traded his ass. He was the first one to go."
It's true. Yeah. I mean, like I heard as far as 2 days ago, I heard a top EU mid. This came from 2 different people I was talking to. They had said that a top EU mid was joining TL, and then I'll admit, everyone, I started to hear a little bit of rumors in the past 24 hours that it was going to be Jensen.
Technically, is he a EU mid to people? Because maybe those are the same rumors. Jensen is European.
Yes, maybe that's what it was. People said, oh, they didn't say Jensen, but they said a different name.
Let's have some fun with rumors, because you were saying that you weren't sure if there was anything behind the scenes that like would have spurred this, because it wasn't like he became a free agent and then TL gave a better offer, like what happened last year with Impact. It sounded like a buyout situation. I had heard that Jensen was relatively unhappy with how things shook out at the beginning of the split, regarding just the benchings and all that stuff. So maybe that was some of the impetus.
Well, and you have to wonder, like I'm sure he was unhappy at the time, but I wonder if he was still.
Yeah, you would think it would have been different, but that's the only thing I think I've heard that could possibly be like Jensen was unhappy with the org.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that I think was pretty like public. That like Sneaky and Jensen, all those guys seemed pretty unhappy. You know, Smoothie, etc. Right? They're like tweeting pictures of, oh, we're on the bench, haha, right? Like they were clearly not super pleased about that. But I think after their Worlds run, after they did end up getting the finals and everything, you have to think that they would be pretty happy with how things are going. But it doesn't mean that he didn't think, maybe it's an even better opportunity. Like when you look at TL on paper, at least, and that obviously hasn't really worked out in NA. Like TSM on paper often is the best team. They don't really do shit at Worlds usually, but TL on paper, at least, like a lot of people were pointing to mid lane as the weakness and mid lane as the reason that they couldn't go super far. So maybe Jensen is looking at that and saying, hey, this team is going to be insane if they have a really good mid laner, and maybe he's the guy to kind of make that happen.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should throw out there before we start grabbing calls. Nico, the curious chameleon, got revealed. I don't know if I haven't had a chance to dive into it, but I don't know if either of you guys have initial first takes or anything that's interesting there.
I have like a question mark over my head because I saw it and I was like, this is all really weird, but I wasn't exactly sure like what the play pattern is supposed to be like.
It looked like there was like a binding, like kind of like a Lux binding, some sort of like other stun. The ultimate looks like kind of like a root and damage or something like that. So, I think abilities might have got released. Someone was talking about that. But
yeah, I looked up all the abilities.
I haven't actually read through everything yet, but I
read through.
Yeah, go ahead.
I read through all of them. The passive is the thing that like makes you look like other people. The W like makes it basically a LeBlanc clone.
Okay.
The Q is like this basically skill shot. It's hard to explain what Q does, but it's just damage for the most part with like some conditionals that ramp damage up. And then the E is kind of like the Lux binding, and then the ult is like kind of like a Nunu ult that you can run around during while you're kind of charging it up for a second.
Okay.
But like, I think you're supposed to like trick your way into the middle of the team fight by pretending to be other shit and then drop like this fatty ultimate, because so much of the damage looks like it's in the ultimate.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really the idea though, because I did see a designer tweeting about how the fact that it's like if you take any sort of damage while you're in disguise, it breaks the disguise, right? So like you're not gonna like walk your way into the middle of 5 people and they're just like, oh hey bro, right? Like there's no champion that walks in the middle of everyone ever just completely ignores them. Like it doesn't really exist. So
that's why I'm confused, because she has no gap closers and stuff, and it's like, well, she's got this big AoE ult centered on her.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that it's like there can be kits that sound like they don't work, but if like one ability just does so much fucking damage, it doesn't really matter what the rest does, right? Like if you look at almost like a lot of times I hear when a champion comes out with essentially a non-combat ultimate like Taliyah, right? People are like, this champion will never work if the ultimate doesn't do damage too, and it's like, well, the Q actually just kills you by itself, so then it's fine, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the Q actually does that much damage, but I feel like it's one of those things that maybe if you play really well around Vision, it could be pretty strong, because I could see, if you're like clone a Jinx when you're playing on a pink ward in the bush, you step forward and like a Malphite ultimates the Jinx or something, you know what I mean? And that's like extra, you're just clone, and they waste those cooldowns, then you can probably win a team fight off that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things where like some champions you see and you're like, oh, I get it instantly how this is supposed to play.
Mhm.
Like Shen, when he got reworked, was like you Q'd, pull through to do more damage, then you press W to win the trade after you taunt. There's like obvious trading pattern. I don't really. The only thing I can see is like you bind them and then you throw your Q, which like every time it ticks on them, it does damage again.
Yeah.
So like you want to bind them, then Q them. But that's all I got. The rest of it, I was like, otherwise it just seems like you're supposed to be tricky as shit and try and like do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and hop into calls. We have, just so everyone knows, Steve should be on the call. We'll be calling in probably in about 20 or so minutes. So we'll be talking to him about that. But I do want to grab maybe one or two calls before then. Mark, you want to give the spiel on how this whole thing works?
Yeah, here's the spiel. If you guys have not watched the show before, and there's a lot of you in here tonight, so it might be the case that you haven't, I'm spamming the Twitch chat right now with the Discord link to join up on the Discord that we're currently on. Once you get here, you'll need to join Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls 2. Unless you're subbed, then you can join Sub Calls. Once you're in there, you can mute yourself so you don't hear people mouth breathing or anything. And then in the Pleb Topics text channel, you're going to go ahead and post whatever it is you want to talk about. Try and make these takes like, I think this move guarantees Team Liquid win both splits again this year. I think Pobelter can join a team and maybe join this team and this stuff. Whatever it is, try and have an opinion in there. And then whenever Steve joins, we'll probably tailor a couple more of these towards Steve and TL. But in the meantime, yeah, go ahead, post in there. If I like your topic, I'll pull you into the waiting room. Once you're there, you just got to wait till it's your turn. Then we'll do a quick mic check and pull you onto the call.
Very good. Well, and by the way, if you are a sub, and there's a lot of people subbing right now, which I appreciate. I lost, I think like 400 or so subs expired in the past 2 weeks, so it's been nice. But so bring them back.
Like that subtle reminder.
Yeah. Well, people forget to re-up, and then suddenly I look over, and it's like when I mute Dash on Twitter. It's just like I don't want to see this anymore. It just makes me feel sad. But I would, if you are a sub, you can sync your Discord and your Twitch, which allows you to access the subtopics chat, and that moves a little slower, so it's a little easier for us to pull people from there. Gives you a bit of an advantage, but of course we do pull non-subs as well. Other than that, we should be getting going. Speaking of subs, I'm gonna read off some while Mark pulls in some folks. Let's see. There's a lot of people subbing tonight, so I have to quickly go through because we're hitting some pretty high viewership. Here we go. Stahil gifted a sub to Liquid 112, Cool for Joe, German TM, Munizel for 4 months, Avura for 5 months, Benurak 2356 for 3 months, Blonde Squirrel gifted a sub to 5 different people, Luna Bubble to be Tuna for 10, Phrasing 1, Rush Come Home Bible Thump for 12 months. 12 months from Rush Come Home Bible Thump. Thank you. It's a whole year. Mr. Fanatic 7 to heal for gifted to Papa Smithy. Cool for Joe gifted to Jensen. I'm sure he'll appreciate that, as I'm sure he'll inevitably watch us. John K with a sub. Valkyrie with a prime. And Rebelcom, who reset for 10 months. And then Kelsey hosted me for 22 viewers. Thank you, Kelsey. And Flingo 2. We're going to pause on the sub reading for a while because there's so many more to go to. But Mark, are you ready to maybe grab somebody? All right, Mark's going to go to the other channel and grab some folks. You got any Thanksgiving plans, Azael, or do you just not celebrate because you're from Canada?
Well, I mean, Canadian Thanksgiving is a while ago, but the last couple of years, at least what I've done is some of my friends who are going home to family, we just kind of have our own little Thanksgiving thing with a couple of us, so probably do something like that. Nice.
Well, that'll be neat. I went to a Friendsgiving last night that Ateo put on, so that was kind of cool. Yeah, things are.
We have someone here, Travis.
Oh, fantastic! Psychosis. Well, I'm doing a lot. Psychosis is here. Psychosis, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from South Jersey.
South Jersey. Okay, is that like New Jersey?
It's the less smellier part of New Jersey.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear.
I'm glad you admit that. I had a friend in college who would always say Jersey smelled terrible, and he was like, "No, dude, Jersey's a shit. Shut up." I'm glad someone else in Mid's jersey just smells bad.
Well, glad to know that you're not in the smelly part. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So my main topic was regarding Echo Fox's off season, and I had something of interest, I guess, regarding Hooney transitioning to mid, because his main issue I thought was how the meta always shifted towards tanks during the playoffs, and if he transitioned to mid, it would allow him to sit on a carry more throughout the playoffs and maybe bring that into the game. And also had some other things regarding that, but if you wanted to talk about that first,
no, that's good. So you're suggesting? Are you suggesting that Hooney stays at Echo Fox and becomes a mid laner?
Yes.
Okay. So it's interesting because I feel like one of the rumors going around that I thought had been kind of been out there is that Hooney might be leaving Echo Fox. Mark, have you heard this?
The only reason I had heard things about that were people saying like Echo Fox was trying to like shed money.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear what Hooney's perspective on anything was. I only heard about things that like, oh, Echo Fox is way too much on the books, and they're trying to get rid of stuff.
Okay. Well, it's good. If Hooney sticks around, that's good. By the way, Jack is in chat, and he says, "I'm here to drink tears." So good to have Jack here. The whole gang is here. So in your world, by the way, Psychosis, Hooney's an eligible candidate to go to Cloud9 and fill the gap that Jensen just left.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I had that idea was mostly pinging off the other topics that I had put, where Echo Fox would buy out Shiro from C9 Academy, and then either attempt to sign Bang or Prey for AD carry. They'd have 2 imports at that point. And,
you've built like a very complex scenario here.
Yeah, it's definitely a reach for sure. But I do think Shiro has shown himself to be probably the most promising upcoming top laner, and Hooney has to be on a more carry-oriented style going into playoffs to be successful.
What about when he played on Immortals and he was playing only carries? He was playing that Lucian in the Graves top and stuff, and that wasn't working out so well. I mean, go ahead.
I just think that worked, but that was when Reignover was at his peak, and maybe not so much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think that Hooney is like, he's obviously just like extremely talented as far as League of Legends goes, and I know he can play a lot of roles, and he often does play other roles in solo queue and climbs to challenger on different roles. Hooney did the NA Civil War thing with us, and he was on my team, and he told me he hit challenger as a mid laner in Korea, right? So he obviously is good at the role, but I also know that Hooney had kind of talked about, oh yeah, I'm going to swap to bot lane before I'm going to be AD because AD is what's OP and all this sort of thing. So, and it never happened. So I've kind of heard him talking about that sort of stuff a number of times, but never really see it pan out. So my guess is he wouldn't do it because even though he is really talented, there's still a lot of stuff you have to learn in that role as far as competitive goes. And I think like another example is kind of Piglet, right? He was someone who actually is, challenger as mid lane and whatnot. And he made the swap, but you saw some pretty up and down performances from him in the LCS. And not saying he's as good as Hooney or whatever, but it was like pretty clear to me that there is a very big difference between solo queue, between competitive, especially when you're swapping to a new role. So I don't think it would happen. And also if they are trying to, as people are saying, kind of shed some of their salary, like I know Echo Fox was dropping teams in other games and so on, and Hooney apparently, rumored has the highest salary in the league. If you're bringing in someone like Bang or Prey, those guys probably aren't coming to NA unless they're making, $1 million plus or whatever, I would imagine. So that would be like a really expensive roster. I think it would be really hype if it happened, but my money is on it not happening.
Mark, any thoughts on this?
I think that what Echo Fox can do is interesting. I think with Pobelter freeing up in the mid lane, assuming money is like not this huge issue for Echo Fox, or if it is, then like a lot of the roster moves become a lot more difficult. But I was talking with Loco, and I said I actually thought Echo Fox were in a great position to have a good offseason because you have one import slot freed up. You only need a mid laner, and now there's a good mid laner from the NA position, so you can go and import a marksman if you want from somewhere, or you can import a mid laner and then you can go get one of the Cody Sons or maybe Apollo, because it sounds like no one knows what's going on with Clutch. I'm not quite sure if he's actually available, but like it feels like there are a lot of AD carry talents that you might be able to get. And then that, I think if you get Pobelter and like, what if you got Bang? Like, holy shit. I think they have a lot of potential moves to make. So I think Huni should stay in the top lane, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it's a lot harder to find other stuff.
Yeah, and going back to what Azael said, role swaps haven't really been a big thing in pro play. You see with Ambition and Score, that worked out successfully, but then you have Xmithy situation where he tried AD carry and it didn't really work out. So I get your point there, and to an extent I agree with it. I was just mostly going off of, trying to switch something up with Echo Fox, considering franchising gives you that ability to take certain risks and go for it.
I am very curious to see what ends up happening. I think Echo Fox is a big mystery to me because I've heard rumors that like Huni's out and that they're gonna sort of approach their roster very differently. But in a world where they don't do that and everything stabilizes and Huni sticks around and everything's fine, it'll be very fascinating to sort of see what ends up happening there. I don't know if he'll go mid lane. I mean, what do you guys think would speculate would be the highest in demand or highest paid roles in the LCS? Mark, you have any thoughts or guesses?
I would assume, obviously import's not a role, but all import players make a lot, and I think that makes mid lane pretty expensive because there's so many imported mids. Yeah. And then even like the domestic NA mids, because they are one of the few domestic NA mids that are good, you need to spend a lot if you want them. So I would imagine mid lane is the most expensive, whereas like top lane has more role players like Dokla and stuff in the league.
Yeah. I guess it depends if you're guessing, like are you talking about like overall like average for a role, or are you talking about
I'm wondering because if you're a Huni,
I would say it's top lane for sure if you're talking about highest. Because while there are a lot of imports for mid lane, I think a lot of those guys came in before franchising, before salaries kind of exploded, and from what I have heard and what is rumored, it seems like the Koreans are getting paid a lot more than Europeans had been, at least so far. So it's like when you think about Flame, Someday, Huni, Impact, all of those guys, right? Like those guys are all probably making fat salaries. So I would think that as far as if you're just looking at like the highest highs, it would probably be top lane.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, because if that's the case, then I think if you are looking at it from a business perspective, you're incentivized to stay in the role where there's the highest demand and the most money. So maybe that's what would happen there. Either way, I want to thank you so much to our good friend Psychosis for calling in. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Have a good one. Man. All right, we have time for maybe one more caller if we make it quick before we get Steven. And it looks like Mark is already off grabbing that person. So a couple of quick shout-outs. Let's see. M-Hub with the Twitch Prime. Happy Llama, 3 months. Beniona with the Prime. Boba Cola gifted, I believe, 5 subs. Oh, Stahil gifted to Zixlol. Congratulations, Zixlol. 10 subs, I believe, from X Solvark. Jesus, that's crazy. Sadistic Nero, Ventus Official. And Sculpted Soldier is here joining us right now. Sculpted Soldier, where are you calling from?
I'm actually calling from London, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, from Canada. Hey, Azael, is that close to where you grew up?
Close enough. I mean, I grew up in Kingston, so not that far away.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah, a couple hours away.
Yeah.
Isn't London where Hotshot GG is from?
I don't know.
I honestly don't even know. Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I think he is. I mean, maybe he's not. We don't talk about Hotshot anymore. My bad. What do you want to talk about on the show, Sculpted Soldier?
Well, my take for today is that I honestly think that some of the organizations should really look at just burning the roster, just starting fresh and getting new talent in.
Yeah, this is my thing. I'm glad to hear this. You want to elaborate a little bit more? Why do you think this?
Well, I think that there's some pros that have just lost their fire, and all they're seeing now is a paycheck.
Wow, okay.
For example, in my biggest opinion for this one is Darshan from CLG. I think for the past 2 years, he's shown a huge decline in his play. And, I mean, I love CLG as an org, but, like, this guy hasn't done shit for the team in the past 2 years. And I would love to see the whole roster just get canned and start fresh, because with that one, it just seems like it's a failed experiment.
Okay, here we go. So, yeah, I would never say that I think Darshan...
punches.
Yeah. I first off appreciate the hot take. I don't think I would ever say that Darshan. From talking to Darshan and my interactions with him, I actually think he has a lot of drive and a lot of desire to do well. I don't think he's a slacker. I've never heard that. I do agree that like CLG is maybe not the place for him anymore, and that he should find like another team. And I actually really agree with you about the idea that CLG should replace at least 3 of its players, and try to rebuild. I think their bot lane is okay, but. And overall, but I've said in the past to your broader argument, I do think it would be good to see a lot of the teams reform, because I think last year we had this big shuffle and a lot of that stuff didn't work out. I think we had a lot of failed experiments. So I don't know, Azael, Mark?
I mean, I don't know about the specifics. I can't speak to like how much drive Darshan has or whatever, but as far as CLG as a team, clearly I felt like they made a really big bet on Reignover, and that didn't work at all. They were not good last year, right? And CLG had been a winning team for a long time, and not making playoffs, not making worlds, definitely a huge disappointment, I think, for the org and for the fans. And I am certainly expecting with that roster in particular, a lot of players to get swapped out and get replaced. But as soon as Zix was gone, I thought that there was going to be a major shakeup, because that was a pretty crazy move to me. And I think the one thing I would say, like, I do tend to agree that if players aren't motivated, and this isn't speaking to Darshan, because again, I don't know the particulars there, but if players aren't motivated, it is good to bring in new blood. And we saw how that worked out very well for C9, right? Like bringing in rookies and being able to have that success with them. That being said, a lot of times I find when people are like, yep, let's get rid of the whole team and let's replace it with new rookies and it'll be great. You have to have players that are better than the guys you're replacing. Otherwise, there's no real point, right? Like, even if
you save some money,
really well, I guess, but I mean, you're going to be dead last. You're going to lose all your fans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, even if Licorice wasn't really a known quantity, even if some of the Azazel wasn't really as known a quantity to people, who are more like outside of the scene, those were guys that a lot of people thought were really talented inside the scene, I think, and those were players that clearly Jack and C9 had a lot of faith in. So I do agree with you, but I think it's really hard to, especially if you're trying to wipe a full roster clean and get 5 new guys. I think that's really tough to find 5 rookies or 5 brand new guys who are going to be LCS level right out the gate.
I'm definitely in the latter half of that camp where I think it's a great idea, but like in execution and reality is like borderline impossible, because one thing we didn't even touch on was like the coach. Who's going to coach these guys? You need someone to teach these rookies how to play correctly, and I think that there's not like a ton of well-regarded coaches who can go in North America and just teach 5 rookies how to play the game.
There's one of them on the show right now.
Nope.
You don't want to return, Mark?
Because here's the thing. Not only do you have to like find a coach who can do it, you need to find a coach who's willing. Like, if I'm a great coach, I'm gonna go fucking coach a championship team. I'm not on your fucking rebuild project. Get me out of there. I'm gonna
unless you're getting a huge salary, right?
Right. I mean, like, that's possible, but like, there's no way to get a great coach and 5 great prospects that aren't like locked up by other people. Because to Isaac's point, like, Licorice and Azazel, people had their eye on them for the better part of a year and a half to step up eventually and become good LCS players.
People were trying to steal Azazel away from C9 for a while, from what I heard.
Yeah, and they eventually ended up getting rid of Smoothie instead of him. So like, people knew Azazel was good for a long time.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, to wrap it up, it's like, it's a good idea, and if you're like a team that didn't work and you're like a 7th place team, like, sure, go for it. But like, I don't think it's actually a good move if you get a bunch of nobodies, because even in the Academy League, Golden Guardians tried something similar where they like just got a bunch of really cheap young guys who hadn't really played together, and they just got so hard blasted every game and like scrim and stuff that they couldn't actually improve. Like, they were just losing so hard they couldn't learn. And then that roster ended up getting reformed because, as the Golden Guardians staff said, like, they weren't useful to scrim against. They weren't learning very well. It's really hard to like actually develop 5 talented people and not have any backbone.
One thing I will say that as a little bit of devil's advocate that I have heard is talking to some of the people who were working with people at Scouting Grounds is one thing is that they did really like working with some of the new players, some coaches at least, because it was the idea that these guys are like more moldable, right? So, if you do find the right player and they do have the talent, sometimes bringing them in fresh, they're more willing to listen to you than maybe some other players who are more set in their ways. So definitely think it's good in principle, but really hard to find the guys to bring in, I think.
Very good. Well, hey,
Sure.
Sculpted Soldier, any final thoughts? Sorry, I don't mean to rush you off, but
No, it's all good. Well, just as a final thought, then, like, at what point would you just stop trying with, say, Darshan or Dardoch? Or, I mean, Dardoch had a good year this year, but I mean, he's had a pretty up and down pass. At what point would you say, hey, we just need to stop trying to get these players as a coach?
I mean, it might be now, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if CLG replaces Darshan. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I just would be surprised if CLG did a full wipe and a full reset, right? But yeah, I totally agree. There has to come a point where, no matter how hard someone is trying, if it's not working for long enough, the players do eventually get phased out, right? And we've seen that happen with a lot of players over the years. I'm not sure if it's at that point with him or not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see CLG replacing
I
some of
think
those
it
guys.
is. Just gonna say.
Yeah.
very good. Well, hey, thank you so much, Sculpted Soldier, for the call. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
man.
Should
Right.
I,
Well, he just gifted 50 subs in the chat, so I guess we have to pull him. Jesus.
I'm
Thank
not even
you,
mic
Steve.
checking him. I'm assuming that as the owner of a team, he'll be prepared.
No, you should go. Oh,
Hi.
he's in here. Hi.
I'm prepared. I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, I knew it.
Welcome to the show,
Good call.
Steve. Really appreciate the 50 subs. Is a great way to just bust down the door to get on.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good way to get a positive intro.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for having me on, Travis. You know, I've been supporting the show. I think last off season, right?
Yeah, last off season we had you on. It was great. You leaked some stuff. It was fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. This is fantastic.
Well-
I'm really happy to be here. It's been a great day so far.
Well, I want to thank you and Jack and ESPN for all doing this right before the start of my show. That was very convenient. I have a big announcement tonight. Now, you know, my upcoming partner, who will soon to be announced, that gets to see these big numbers, and it's all because you guys colluded to help me out. So thank you. What? So I guess normally people come on and they've got a take. We've got takes for you. So, do you want to explain sort of how this came about and why Jensen?
Yeah. So I think it was started with me dreaming of going to Worlds, right? Like last season, and when I was building the team, and we were 10th place in 2017, and I was like, okay, let's actually build a team that can qualify for Worlds. And so I started to put the pieces together for that. And I think once we got to Worlds, it was like, we're here. Holy shit, we could actually like get out of groups and do really well. And then we fell short, and I kind of got a taste for what it might be like to win a world championship. And I think there was like this looming mentality that like players from the East were somehow like superior to what could be accomplished in the West. And then Cloud9 kind of made their run, and Fnatic made it to the finals. And it was like, okay, we could actually do this. Like I could build a team that could win a world championship. Like I'm going to go for it. And that's where it kind of started. And then when I had the opportunity to sign Jensen, I thought, well, this guy brings experience, like carry potential. Like we ran some in-game statistics over the last 3.5 years for both, Pobelter and Jensen, and a number of other players, and his stats on like how effective he is with the gold that he earns in a game is actually right up there with like Caps and Rookie, which is, I think, a pretty important stat. And he had like the motivation and experience and drive. And so like it just made sense. And once I kind of figured stuff out with Jack, it was, it just became a possibility, you know? And then I spoke with Jensen, and he made a few promises to me, which I won't share exactly what they are. But
World
he made
Championship
promises.
Trophy 2019.
Yeah, and he's just like, I'm summarizing, but he's like, you know, I'm gonna fucking do this, you know, like I'm gonna give it 100%, and that's inspiring, right? Like that's what we're doing this all for. And he also said, like, dude, I haven't won an LCS North American Championship, like always have fallen short. And I just told him, I said, we're gonna win the one this year. Like that's
only one or two.
Two. We're gonna start with one.
It's like we've got at least one of these. It's a 50-50, but
Yeah, so that's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah. Well, Azael or Mark, feel free to jump in with questions. I know we've got several, but it doesn't need to turn into a Travis interview.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, you go for it.
I'm just really curious, what the thought process is as far as so you talked about, Caps, you talked about Rookie, you talked about some of these other guys. How many mid laners did you really look at? Was it just a situation of, hey, Jensen's available, Jensen's really good, let's bring him in? And, you talk about kind of the goal of winning Worlds. So looking at it through that lens, were you really looking at, a ton of different mid laners from around the world to consider for this position? And also really curious, were you taking into consideration the fact that he is going to become no longer an import right in summer, so that opening up possibilities also?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part first. So the plan of establishing a team that some of the players turn to NA residents is a big factor, right? Like that was part of the offseason plans for 2018 and signing a 3-year contract with Impact, who just got his green card approved, and he also just hit the timing for becoming a North American resident, which gives us the ability of having both an import mid and support. And to also have Jensen next year gives us a lot of flexibility, right? And those options kind of increase our probability that we can have more decisions, between each offseason. So it's absolutely a consideration. In terms of, how we approach each offseason, we're actually pretty analytical about it. We have this master spreadsheet that imports all the data from every player and every secret account that we know from solo queue, and we have it compiled into certain statistics that I like looking at, and we map out of that list who our priorities or kind of our short list is going to be. And I have each of the staff members do that, and then we kind of meet after we come up with our own conclusions and figure out what is going to be the best roster. And so, yeah, there's plenty of names at the start of that process, and then it kind of gets narrowed down, and we talk about what's important and what's going to gel with the team. For me, a big piece of it was just having additional carry potential within the team, doing more with a gold lead, because Impact, he's fantastic at soaking up pressure, right? How many times have you seen Impact get 3-man dove and he turns it around, or and to just have that kind of style from Jensen, I think adds a lot to the team. So that was a big piece of it.
Yeah.
Travis, are we doing calls with Steve?
I don't think we do calls with Steve. I think maybe later on in the off season we'll pull him on for a more dedicated episode. But I think we can just keep talking to him for another 10 or so minutes.
Cool. I pulled some people, but they had similar points that I wanted to ask. Anyways, what do you think about overall play style concerns that I know some people have expressed about just if Jensen can play with a big personality in Double Lift who feels like he wants a lot of the in-game resources and stuff, was these things that you were heavily considering, or was it Jensen's skill and these numbers and these analytics are so overwhelming that we're going with him and we'll figure it out from there?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an inherent problem with Double Lift and Jensen competing for resources on the map. Part of our problem in the past year has been, again, the meme, right? It's the Double Lift show. If Double Lift gets a lead, TL wins. If Double Lift doesn't get a lead, TL may lose, or it's just a tough game. And so there's enough resources on the map to go to 2 carry players, right? That's possible. The mid lane's the center of the map. You get a gold lead, you're effective in team fights, you dish out a lot of damage. That's just there's enough to go around, I think, to answer that question. He's proven that he's consistent and can perform well and compete against some of the best mid laners in the world and go to toe to toe and even do better. So, yeah.
My next question is, Reggie's in the chat. He says Steve sucks, low elo scrub, and then he's just spamming TSM repeatedly. I don't know if you have a rebuttal to that, Steve. I'm just kind of curious.
And he just sounds salty as fuck from last year.
Okay. Well,
Well, there's not much to say to that.
Yeah. Took your best player. Your team sucks now. Good luck in the offseason.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, well, we'll have Andy on in the future so that he can have his own rebuttal. But what a lot of people are asking...
I love you, Andy. I love you.
A lot of people in chat are asking about Pobelter. Is he currently a member of Team Liquid? Has he been released? Is he getting traded? What's the future for the 2018 mid?
Yeah. Eugene and I have had a history, right? Like, he was 14 years old when he was playing with me as support, right? Like, and we went through some ups and downs, as many people know. And during the last offseason, we brought him in, and his contract just ended this year, right? Like, it ended today at 5 p.m. We obviously spoke with him in the middle of the split and close to the end of the season and exploring options, and things just didn't work out. But he's a fantastic player. I think he has grown considerably. I mean, one of the first things that I realized when he started to do scrims, and we had Mickey playing on Academy, and we were like, oh, Mickey's got all of this mechanical skill, and like he's got a lot of carry potential and all this stuff. But we quickly realized that Eugene is just like an excellent communicator. He is always talking about his lane and providing information to the jungler, and he is thoughtful and creative in the mid game. Like, he just brings a lot of those qualities. Plus, he's bilingual. So, and now he's a North American mid, or he is a North American mid. So he has a lot of value there. So I'm sure he will absolutely go to another team. He will be like a star signing for another roster. So I'm not too worried. He'll figure it out.
I have a question.
Go
if
ahead.
I can jump in, I'm just curious. So, like, obviously, there's a lot of talk in the community about C9 developing talent and TL just kind of buying talent. Like, what would you kind of say to that as far as your reputation and TL's reputation and kind of growing reputation as maybe the Yankees of the NALCS type of deal? And what is your thought on the approach there? Like, do you feel that this is just more of like a win now type thing versus long term, or kind of what's your view on it?
Yeah, I mean, my view is that, like, I called MasterCard to kind of figure out if my limit is still unlimited. But, just kidding. We always are. I think this really comes from me, like, always having a strong will to win and taking risk. I mean, from bringing in like Edward back in the day to Curse, who was like one of the first imports ever to North America. I kind of keep trying. I don't give up. And so I think there's this kind of sentiment that, like, holy shit, like Curse or Team Liquid are always doing these big moves and trying things, and we are. And so I think it's kind of developed this meme, like we pay to win. Well, I would argue that, like, we're doing things, we're pushing the envelope. We're not complacent. We're not like a Golden Guardians or, I mean, whoever placed like 9th or 8th to 10th, like over and over. Like, no, we're gonna switch stuff up. We're gonna invest. We're gonna figure out what went wrong and fix it. And we're gonna go after the best. And so some of that most of the time that comes with financial resources. But Team Liquid is doing incredible. We have some of the best partners in the industry. Our company's growing considerably. Our revenues are increasing. Our brand equity, we're winning across tons of different games. Like, we can use that and leverage that to ensure that we reinvest into the team, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
So follow-up question, getting off just Pobelter and more about the rest of TL's plans for the offseason. Are there any other big moves coming, like main roster stuff that you guys are looking at, or is it now about filling in with academy talent and things like that?
Oh, Mark. Like,
I mean, you had to know people were going to ask, is this the only change that's happening to the roster, right? Like, it's inevitable.
You knew this question was coming.
Saw a lot of TL Matas in the chat.
I mean, I'm not going to say anything,
I feel like if you were not making any other changes to the main roster, you would say, yep, that's it. I feel like by not saying anything, it means there's roster changes coming.
It's just silence. I don't know.
Okay.
Please plead the fifth.
I'm pleading the fifth. There
Yeah.
you go. No comment.
All right.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else to talk about. I mean, this is the big thing. What maybe Steve, you can. I don't know how much you want to tease, but last year we saw massive, crazy roster changes across the entire league as we saw new teams come in. This feels like a pretty big kickoff, right? Like you guys, it's like 5 p.m. and moments later we find out that Jensen is switching. Do you expect there to be a lot of movement in the offseason? Are you hearing stuff that there's going to be a lot of roster trades and maybe big names moving around?
I think of the last 6 years in off seasons, this has been the craziest.
This is the craziest over last year?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about not just Team Liquid specifically, but
Yes.
just worldwide offseason, I think a couple reasons. Last year, the offseason roster dates were actually not synced with North America, so the dates were kind of off. This year, they put everyone on the same date, and they didn't allow transfers until today at 5 p.m. PT. So it kind of brought everybody together on the same page to say everyone negotiate, get your deals done, they're inked at the same time. And if you need to get a deal done in Korea, you got to be up at whatever time it was, 4 a.m, to get that stuff done.
Have you been up at 4 a.m. in the morning recently, Steve?
Oh, he seemed to know the
You- you-
times.
you would
No one
sleep-
check his tweets.
You would sleep it okay?
Is he awake?
Very interesting.
That was a good pickup.
On that topic though, about the Korean stuff, I was looking at the database a fair amount recently. It feels like almost every big name player in Korea's contract ended this year. Almost there were not very many big name players through 2018. Do you know if they have been heavily targeted by NA orgs at all? Is this something that you said that everyone's on the same time for the first time? Is this you can feel everyone talking about, and that's why you know that there's big shit coming?
Well, I think there's a few things, right? You've got EU, which are introducing a franchise system this year. So you have a lot of hype around organizations that just paid 10 million euros or dollars to get into the franchise. They're ready to invest. They want to build their brand and first impressions into the LCS. They're going to go ham. And there's a few organizations that are investing. And then you have a region in Korea that have been disappointed in the results from last year. And when that happens, there's going to be movement, right? Players were unhappy with the results, and the region is disappointed as a whole. And so I think that has increased movement. And then just the introduction of some of the monetization that's happened in China. I don't know if you saw the news of the $144 million alleged Nike deal. It's monetizing, right? And then you add on top of that the league as a whole, from a worldwide perspective, just had its best year in viewership that it's ever had since its inception of the league. So you add all these factors together, and yes, you've got investment and player movement, and this seems like big news because it's the first, but there's some stuff brewing.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You mentioned EU. I know a lot of EU fans. I've seen Reddit and things like this, kind of speculating about a reverse exodus. From NA going back to EU. I'd seen a lot of talk from European fans about how good would EU LCS be if they got all their players back. Do you see any talk about that? Do you think that a lot of the European players are pretty happy in North America, or is that something that you've really kind of heard anything about?
I haven't heard too much of that. I mean, I think, as I mentioned, some of the new teams and brands that will be admitted into the new franchise system are probably calling some of the players that are EU, but, have been playing in NA. But I also think that in EU, they develop a lot of great talent. I remember when Fnatic got gutted and they rebuilt and, landed on their feet. And, whatever happens with Caps, right? He just went free agency today, like 4 hours ago. So there's just there's going to be a lot of interest, and we'll see where some of those players land.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see the NAEU war that's about to happen, the trade war between all the different teams, because I'm super fascinated to see, do the EU guys go back? Certainly Jensen probably had the opportunity to, and he decided to stick around. But I don't know if you want to call him an EU player anymore, but it should be super interesting. Any final questions for Steve before he heads out, guys?
Not off the top of my head.
Sounds
I think we
like
got
it.
through a lot.
Well, Steve, any final thoughts before you move on?
No, thanks for having me on the show, Travis. It's always a pleasure, and love your content, love the show. I've always been supporting, and if anybody has watched this show and hasn't subbed or donated, I encourage you to do so. It goes to help support Travis. So
thank you, Steve.
That's a good ass guess right
you're
there.
You're a lovely man. Lovely
You know
man.
what's expected now, Isaac.
Yeah.
You leave.
I can't live up to that.
All right. Thanks so much, Steve.
Guys.
Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
night.
Yep.
The man has a MasterCard sponsorship. What do you want me to do?
All right. Well, on that note, as I'm seeing a bunch of Twitch Primes hit the channel, thank you everyone for listening to Steve, and thanks again, Steve, for calling in. We made that happen on very short notice. I got a message after the news hit that Steve was down to come on the show, and then we made it happen. So it ended up working out. Wow, people sending bits and subs and everything. This is maybe a great time to take a break. And for several months, I've been teasing a big thing coming to the show. Thank you guys for the subs. And I think we have the announcement video ready. I'm going to let's see, how can we do this? I can link it. I'll link it to you in chat, Azael, because you won't be able to hear it unless you've got the stream open. Yeah, I think it's time. So the only problem, or my only concern right now, is that I forget if this is a weird technical issue. So I had an interview with Steve that I was going to play, and I think I might have messed it up and put it over the announcement video. So I think this is the announcement video. We're going to find out. Here, I'm going to
you
mute
just link it to
Discord.
me and I check first.
No. It's because it's in the system. Well, I'm going to mute Discord. I'll link it to you, Azael, and we'll figure it out. Okay. Okay, here we go, everybody. Announcement video, hopefully. Well, do you have anything that you would like to say to any of the people out there cheering for Team Liquid?
I mean, absolutely. I just want to thank all of our fans for supporting us over the last year, and of course our partners as well. So thanks, guys.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for the interview, and for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel.
That's a cut.
All right, that's a wrap on Steve.
That was good, guys.
Hello. As you can see, it takes a lot to keep Travis Gafford Industries running. Just the sheer amount of finances and talent you need to maintain a studio like this, it's incredible. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Our crew is specially vetted. These aren't amateurs here. We hire only the best. And that's because we really care about the details in every project. Magenta. We care about the details in every project that we take on. But don't take my word for it.
I work closely with Broden and the VFX team to make sure everything is historically accurate and realistic.
It would feel wrong not to give it 100%. I like to set a high bar for quality, and it's not easy to do that on a shoestring budget.
We pay attention to every single little detail because we know our audience also pays attention.
Now, as you might imagine, it takes an obscene amount of capital to keep things running here, even if we're trying to keep it grassroots.
Coffee?
Not now, Mark. And that is why I am so excited to announce a new partnership. Travis Gafford Industries will be fully funded in 2019 by Alienware. It's going to be a great year. Hello, everyone. So Azael, you can chill for a second while you wrap it up. I am super, super excited to talk about this, guys, because a lot of people, I know, Twitch chat going crazy. Thank you, guys. So first off, hopefully you enjoyed that video. Broden had a lot of fun directing it. It's actually funny we came up with that video idea at the beginning of this year, this idea of like, oh man, well, wouldn't it be so funny if we were actually recording all this stuff in a studio? So I just posted a video up on my YouTube channel as well that is going to go over a lot of the same stuff. But this is not just a Hotline League sponsorship. So everything that I do next year, as the dogs begin to fight, everything that I do next year will be sponsored by Alienware in terms of my League of Legends coverage and all that. So everything you saw from me this year, from Spring Split, Summer Split, Finals, Worlds, MSI, all that stuff is now sponsored. This is a huge deal for me because at the end of basically this time last year, I made the decision to make the jump to going full-time independent. And it was really scary because I didn't know where the sponsorship was going to come from, how I could do this. You guys might remember that at MSI, I didn't have a sponsor, so I sent myself over there. And MSI was also the interview where Azael ended up calling it Travis Gafford Industries or whatever and sort of created the meme. So it's fun that
I didn't know
he's on
Isaac
the show,
made that.
in an interview, because it was called Travis Gafford Esports before then, and then he called it in the interview Travis Gafford Industries. So we've coined it ever since then. So anyway, going back to the sponsorship thing, like it's pretty monumental. In fact, like I'd go so far as to say I don't know of any other sponsorship or deal that's been inked that's like this in the history of esports. They're coming in and supporting basically everything I do, and really helping to fund like the media side of all this stuff. Beyond that, I don't want to go too long because there's a video as well, and I know we need to get back to other stuff, but it's super cool for me. But beyond that, like they are going to do some. Oh, damn it! I was so excited. I was like, I'm gonna pop up the laptop in the background during the commercial, and then it'll come back, and the laptop will be here. But
Is that mine?
What's that? That's
that
not
mine?
yours. Sorry.
Damn it.
This is the 15, the new Slim and Light 15. Everyone should check it out. But yeah, Mark is getting a laptop. So to that point, they are basically opening up a giant fund for me to get tons of Alienware hardware, computer systems, and for those of you that don't know, Alienware is owned by Dell. And so it opens up the ability for me to get a ton of the Dell tech as well. So all that stuff, we're going to be running on that stuff. Mark's getting a new laptop because his is aging. Broden's getting a bunch of new stuff to edit on. We'll have extra funds to get stuff for any freelancers that work with us if they need something or whatever. So it's super cool. All of 2019 is handled. It's super amazing. We've been working on this for a while, and just so you guys understand the mystery sponsor thing, we started this and we weren't ready to announce it, and we still had a bunch of stuff that we had to deal with, and this is one of the coolest things. Alienware was like, listen, just promote as a mystery sponsor. We don't need the promotion. We want to make sure you and Mark don't, that the show goes unsponsored until we're ready or whatever. So they did that just as a really cool thing. So I know a lot of you guys were like, what's the mystery sponsor, whatever. And that was just basically them helping out to make sure that we didn't have any kind of gap in the sponsorship of the show. So that's the kind of cool thing they're doing. They want to help support the stuff, and they want me to be able to do it for that. I'm still independent. I'm not Alienware Travis, but their support is going to power everything that we do here, and it's going to be really cool. So thanks so much to Alienware. I also forgot to put their logo up on screen, which I was supposed to do. But
amateur hour.
I'm just too excited. I'm like legitimately, I'm very excited. I know. It's a huge deal. So I'm very excited. Mark, you said, I know we should move on, but Mark, you said it.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
I was really excited when I heard about this because I've actually been on Alienware computers basically since college. They had funded my college's game design lab, and so all the computers that we programmed on, developed games on, were Alienware's. And then when I graduated and started moving into the esports industry, they've been working with Team Liquid for almost the entire time as well. So I still have my Team Liquid Alienware laptop that I use. So I'm excited to get a new one, but I've been on Alienware for 8 years basically, so I'm pretty fucking stoked to get another one.
It's pretty cool. And by the way, if you guys can, I'll put it in chat. If you're watching the VOD, please look in the description. Dell.com/Travis. Dell.com/Travis. If everyone can go over there right now, that's a huge help to me. It's basically promoting the Black Friday deals that they've got going on for Alienware stuff. Even if you're not necessarily looking for a system right now, go over there. They've got monitors. Just peruse, look, and see the new stuff that they've got over there. That's a huge help to me. Dell.com/Travis, and that's how the show will work. And yes, in the future we'll have giveaways and all sorts of cool stuff. Broden's in the chat. He's complaining that there's no attention. I said thank you, Broden, for directing the commercial. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Oh, what's my cut, by the way, for the Travis Gafford Industries thing? 10%, 20%.
I think technically you're like a part owner now.
I think
I'm part owner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Azael,
like that. That's good.
Azael, Shox just announced she's going to be an independent contractor, freelancer. If you want to make that decision, I'm sure I've got some friends I can talk to that about getting you some stuff.
You got the hookups.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet.
So anyway, thanks everyone for supporting this, because it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all the support and love you've shown my content over the past year. So truly thank you everyone for the assistance, and thanks again to Alienware for coming in. That's the super hype thing to talk about tonight. All right, let's get back into calls, because we've spent a lot of time on this, but I'm excited to move back into calls. Mark, you want to go grab somebody?
Yeah, I got them all ready.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh, dirty pour. I don't.
Where?
How's
Dirty pooer? Just say it. You know it's pooer.
I'm not sure. We just announced a sponsor. I think it's just dirty. Dirty. How are you doing? Where are you calling from?
I'm great. I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York.
Very good. And how's Brooklyn these days?
It's alright.
It's alright. Okay. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to talk about how, despite all these spicy import rumors, I think the general state of the league is most going to be determined by where Pobelter and Cody's Sun end up, just based on the playoffs picture from the last 2 years.
Very good. Well, I don't know if I agree with that, but why don't you continue and elaborate?
I think a lot of imports, I think most imports are kind of nutty. So regardless of the import you get, these teams are going to end up with 2 imports that are generally going to be pretty strong carry positions, but I don't think it really matters who's around them. I think a good example would be TSM. They had Sven and Mithy, but then they had fucking Grig in the jungle, and they didn't make it to Worlds.
So I think you cut out a little bit, but I think you were saying what matters more, assuming you get a good import, what matters more is what you put around them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine that Optic gets... They still have Dokla in the top lane. It's not like they're going to do anything with that team.
Right. I get what you're saying. I kind of agree. I think if you teams like Optic, who get a lot of talent but then aren't able to surround it with enough supporting talent, that it doesn't quite work out. As well as the fact that I think Arrow probably underperformed a little bit. But either way, what are you laughing at, Isaac?
Sorry, do you not see the cat? Just there's this. You can't see the cat. You just see this tail floating around on the screen.
That's a tiny cat.
Yeah.
Oh god.
This is not a Tiny Cat sponsorship. Everyone's Alienware sponsorship. Why does the cat have to show? Did you time that, Azael? Are you trolling me?
I didn't do shit.
I'm gonna get an email tomorrow from the Alienware folks. It's what's this Alienware thing?
Yeah.
Could we move the cat? It's maybe put it in the lap or something.
The cat? Just let it be the cat.
Yeah,
all right.
What's wrong with the cat? You wanting me to abuse my animal here? You some kind of sicko, Travis?
Let's move on. All right, Mark, you were saying.
I was saying I agree that in principle, I do think what import you get matters. I just think in terms of skill, it's a lot more about how that imported player acclimates to the North American environment, as well as a couple other factors about synergy and stuff. Matters a lot as well with how they work with their team and making sure the team actually has a good foundation around it. But yeah, to your point, if you have Someday and he's not surrounded by talent like he was, you could say, on Dignitas compared to 100 Thieves, and of course he doesn't perform as well. So I agree with what you're saying for the most part, but I still think Pobelter and Cody Sun will probably not outplace Jensen, who just swapped over, or Team Liquid. So I would say Jensen was the most important move so far. But then again, Steve said big moves are coming.
I'd say Jensen was the most important move, but I think regardless of what Team Liquid did, they were probably going to be top 1 or 2 in the league. Everyone falls after that I think the NA players are going to determine that as opposed to imports.
So like I agree that residents are extremely important, right? If the idea is that you can get there's like this ocean of imports and everyone's willing to come, and you're just gonna like pick a really good one and then you get them. If you know your money or whatever isn't an object, then like I understand what you're saying there. I don't know if I agree that Cody Sun and Pole Belter are the ones that are necessarily going to dictate that, because you're putting it as a given that you have amazing imports, right? So if you already have like Faker and Prey or whatever, and you just have them for free, then yeah, like putting the imports around them, the residents around them becomes extremely important. But you still have to get those really, really good quality imports first. And Cody Sun, I think has been pretty solid. But I don't know if I would put him on the same level as some of the other residents. Like when you think about like Impact is a resident now, Doublelift is a resident, right? Bjergsen is a resident. Like guys like that, I would say are the ones that more dictate it, because those are the guys that are going to be probably stars on a lot of teams, and that's why I think TL is in such a good spot, because they have 2 players who are kind of like stars and are residents, right? I don't know if Cody Sun will do that for a team, but. Poe Belter, I definitely think like is a really strong pickup, and I think Cody Sun's a really strong pickup too. But you still have to then have them on a team that has 2-star imports, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just picking those 2 names because obviously Bjergsen and Impact are not free agents currently. And I also do think it's interesting. Poe Belter and Cody Sun have both 2 years, even though they're not like amazing players. I just think it's an interesting detail to point out.
I think people kind of over harp on Poe Belter's international failings. Like I get
He's
it,
won a
like
bunch of championships.
Yeah, like if you want to say Poe Belter might be a liability at international competition, sure, but like I think a lot of people would be happy with the opportunity to get to that position where you have to worry about that. And like Azael just said, like he is a domestically proven player who you will win championships with if you put him on good teams. And like he was close with Immortals, he was close, he did win with CLG, he did win with TL. Like he's no joke. So I think he should not get overlooked despite what we're saying right now.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I don't have much else to say.
Yeah, very good. Well, hey, thank you so much, Dirty, for the call. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Travis. Congrats on the sponsorship.
Thanks, dude. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Have a good day.
I do agree with his point though. Like residents can't be overlooked, right? You can't just have 2 superstars and then us 3 on a team and it does well, right? Like that's definitely not. That's definitely going to be last place. But
what I do find very funny is
that
you
need the imports too.
What I do find very funny is that Steve is setting himself up for a situation where, like, no offense to Smithy, but you end up with like Peter and 4 imports for Team Liquid down the road, which would be very funny.
That's why residents are worth so much, right? If you have someone who is top of the league and is a resident, there's not a lot of them. They're worth so much.
Yeah. All right. Mark is off to go grab the next person. I don't even know how to catch up on all the subs that I've been given this episode, which I feel really bad because I always try to make a point to shout them all out. But I
speed read.
All right, hang on.
Too late. I already pulled someone.
Hey, Smeems, I'm so happy you're here. Smeems, where are you calling from?
Southeastern Michigan.
Southeastern Michigan. All right. Is that the glove or is that the dog?
The dog. It's the glove. It's like the hand.
Okay.
I'm 30 minutes from Detroit.
Is the other one not is the other one not a dog?
Are you talking about the Upper Peninsula?
Yeah.
I've never heard it called a dog, but we'll go with it.
Okay. Well,
Travis is special, all right?
Good to hear you're in the glove. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
Okay, so my I guess my hot take was, even though TL looks better than they did last split on paper with the addition of Jensen, I think they'll have a split or a season that is borderline carbon copy of this last split.
Okay.
So I think they'll do like really well regular season and maybe even take first and win playoffs. But I think they'll just not make it out of groups again unless Jensen like just becomes a god and just steps up. I have a few reasons for that.
What are those reasons?
So, like I said, they do great domestically, but they don't translate well internationally. And I think a big problem with that is, or the main reason for that is double lift. He's got like really horrible Worlds performances. It's like a meme at this point. And the fact that double lift is like known to be extremely demanding, like needing all the resources in the game, I think it'll clash really poorly with Jensen. It'll make it way harder for Jensen to carry.
Do you guys think that double lift had a bad Worlds this year?
Yeah, that's where I was going to start. I think so. In the past, I think you certainly argue that he's had really bad performances, and he certainly had bad results. But I felt like for the most part at MSI and Worlds this year, he was pretty good. And the other thing I would say, even just about Jensen isn't a guy who only plays carries, right? Like for like the champion that ever started banning against him was Zillion, right? Which is very supportive, which is very enabling of that kind of style. He played a lot of Galio. He plays other champions, and that is, I think, one of Jensen's strengths is that he can be more of an enabler, but also can play that carry threat that maybe TL was missing. So. I'm not sure I fully agree, but I do totally like. I'm on the same page as far as just because you have something that looks good on paper doesn't mean it works, right? And that was TSM. I think like coming into last year, I thought TSM was probably going to be the best team in the league, or at least top 2 or top 3, right? You thought that they would be really competing for that because on paper it's like, oh, you have Sven, you have Mithy, you have Bjergsen, you have Hans. There's no way this team isn't good, but it doesn't always work, and play styles, working together and kind of coalescing in the right way, I think is extremely important.
I think I don't agree with the reasons S-memes provided, but I think one big concern for me is what feels like the double lift international behind the scenes like team environment effect, where it feels like the teams that he's a part of put so much pressure on themselves to perform well, they almost always come up short. And he himself admitted in one of the Team Liquid videos, I think it was in there, where he said like, oh, I was like harping on my teammates for like really dumb mistakes that like I probably went too hard on. And I think that's probably where my biggest concern lies, is like, I think Jensen has the ability to play multiple styles. I think that should all be fine, like Isaac was saying, but he's been playing on C9, which as far as we can tell is a pretty chill, relaxed team for the most part. And I would be concerned that like he joins and like double lift does the double lift thing where he's just like nitpicking people and being really critical and like putting a ton of pressure on everyone. And that is the concern.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's also interesting because while TL, like a lot of those guys have had a lot of regional success, like Double Lift has won so many championships in NA. Jensen has never won an NA LCS title. Like all his success has been international, right? So it's kind of like the inverse problem where Double Lift has never gotten out of groups. Jensen is getting out of groups. He got to semifinals, all that sort of stuff. But he's never won an NA LCS title, and a lot of people were kind of calling Jensen the choker regionally and Double Lift the choker internationally. So.
Does the choking cancel out, or is the choking double down?
That's the question, right? And I'm sure people will have their own hot take. I mean, I just think that if I were to bet, I think that team's gonna be really good. Like you just have to feel like as long as there's not a lot of internal drama. I felt like TL had to play a lot through Double Lift because Impact and Pobalter internationally at least weren't like the top level carry players that you didn't want to play around them as much. And this gives them a second threat, but it all depends how the team actually works together.
TL's going to suck for the first 4 weeks of Spring Split. That's how this always goes.
Freak out.
Yeah, that's always how this goes. You build like the super team, some big name. The only thing that'll save them is if like somebody signs Faker and brings them to North America, because that's the team that'll suck for the first 4 weeks of LCS. Whatever team is like most hyped is the one that struggles the most in the very beginning, at least.
I know I'll be upset because I'm a TL fan. Like that, it's like my favorite team. So this topic's kind of like when I saw this on Reddit, I was like, oh wow, and that's why I really wanted. I saw you were streaming tonight, and I really wanted to get on here. To go off of what Mark was saying though, like the whole behind the scenes thing, like he said, if Double Lift just doesn't do that whole nitpicking thing, I think they could probably do really well and even go like far in Worlds. But the main thing I think will be like synergy, because like I don't know if this matters, but like season 2 TPA, I think it was season 2, TPA, where like it was just like a ragtag bunch of like friends, or like not the best players.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
They were good, right? But they weren't like, I don't know. I've seen a lot. I've seen like a documentary on that, and I've looked into it, and it seems like they were not favored to win whatsoever, but their synergy was so good that it kind of overlapped that. I just feel like just buying the best players can be a little.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
I think to counter my own point a little bit, the thing that you would say that would like offset some of the concerns that we were having was like Impact's played with him before. Smithy seems like the chillest person on the planet, so I don't think those two will get to him. There's the question of what happens at the support position still, and Steve could not confirm that their moves were done for the season, so the off season. So we'll see if there's another change there. But like,
I wouldn't say. I mean, I have no insider information. I do not have insider information. I'm not winking. I don't. But I would not say I don't feel like Ole, things are looking good for him right now, right? Like if Steve is somewhat unable to confirm that they're done.
4 a.m. for that Korean time.
Yeah. It's like I would just be worried. People in chat are saying get Biofrost ready. I would be shocked if CLG gives up Biofrost. It feels like he's like the star for the team right now. So, and he is he's still under contract. So I'd be really surprised, but. Maybe someone will pay some crazy buyout.
The CLG, like I think a better example than the TPA one is just CLG at MSI, right? Like that was prior to C9's World Semifinal run, what everyone pointed to as the best NA run. And when you looked at CLG as individuals, most people did not say that this was like a superstar team. It was more about their teamwork, right? And more about their team play. So I definitely know what you're getting at there.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and that's how it is for a lot of people, I think. So, or a lot of teams you see. It's not always like the super teams that win. It's the teams that are a bunch of pals and friends that somehow came together to triumph through adversity.
Power of teamwork and friendship.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts here, Smeems, on the way out?
No, you guys all rock, and I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah.
Base Unit carried MSI. Big
That's
agree.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
That team would have mentally exploded if Base
That's
Unit
a fact.
It's
a fact.
There's no arguing with that.
Base Unit, he's still a free agent, I believe. So I don't understand why he's not getting picked up. Maybe we'll find some news.
Maybe
about
Double
this
Lift isn't safe.
Yeah. Well, it would be whoever is in the sub role because I think he's only valuable. Cool for Joe gifted to Sneaky and Aframu, Ladder Slider to Bears V3, Kansho Bakura, Nin the Dog, Nanuko111, Nihilist Gamer, Sonorium, Eldorilo, OMG I'm a Carrot, Cool for Joe with Ice Princess 1727, Dante Sor gifted a sub to Strong Bad Email, Stahil gifted a sub to C9 Jack, and the Sea Lion is here. The Sea Lion, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Is there a lot of sea there for you to Sea Lion?
No.
What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
Inland.
What?
So I have a hot take, and that is that C9 Sneaky is the most valuable player in North American LCS. Not that he's the best player, but that he's the most valuable player. And my reasoning for that is that Sneaky has been top 2, top 3 at his position almost every split, every season since he's been on Cloud9, and he has been able to push his team forward without having to require the resources that players like Doublelift and Bjergsen, who are better mechanically than he is, but not as good as a team player. I think Bjergsen and Doublelift have struggled in times where they demand too many resources and aren't able to have good teams around them because they demand too much.
I forget, in the summer, how long did Doublelift and Bjergsen spend on the bench? I'm trying to remember.
So, I mean, like I said, Sneaky is not the best player in LCS, but there's also something to be said about him being willing to sit on the bench and improve for the team. I think what makes him the most valuable player is that he is the team player, the best team player in LCS.
Yeah.
So my question to you would be, so you're now the proud owner of a new team in the LCS. You have unlimited money, so it doesn't matter. And you have first pick in a draft. Every player is available in all of LCS. Who do you pick?
From North America, I'd still pick Sneaky.
You'd pick Sneaky over everyone, over all imports.
Because I feel like it's easier to build. Well, okay, if I'm talking about if I could get somebody from Korea, then
I'm talking about
the
everyone that's in the league.
Yeah,
right?
the 2018 lineup,
including all the Korean imports, including all the EU imports. You have to build a team taking considerations like the depth of the positions, like how many mid laners there are that are good, how many top laners there are that are good, everything like that. Your first pick and budget is not a thing. It's Sneaky.
Yes, because I think you can build a team around Sneaky that's good. And around a lot of these other like hyper carry players, you're not going to build a team around them that can work out together without having a bunch of friction and causing problems.
Well, okay,
I
so
think that's been something a lot of NA teams have fallen into in the past. Like
I think the two sides there. One, Azael and Jack are both in the Twitch chat. They really agree with you. I can't speak to the rest. I can't speak to the rest of Twitch chat, but those two people in chat, they are really behind your statement. Secondly, I would just say you said that you can't build teams around these other all-star players that win without friction. Those other all-star players have won multiple times, and I don't know, maybe they're
okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, okay. The problem that you have here is that like other people have won more than he has. Like,
okay,
like Smithy wins more than he does.
Okay, so what about if I said internationally? Because I think at Worlds this year there was a big problem with teams that had really good hyper carries and then didn't have the rest of the team that could back it up when the meta didn't fit them. So the meta this year wasn't 80 carries win the game, and because of that, teams like that focused around their 80 carry like Uzi and Double Lift had issues carrying. Whereas the teams that had multiple carry roles that could split the resources and knew how to play with each other did better.
The problem you're going to get into with this argument is that like you're supposing you're getting to Worlds, and that's where Sneaky's like true value shines. Whereas there's a number of North American players who do better at getting you to Worlds than Sneaky does. You won't get any argument from me that Sneaky's the Scottie Pippen of the NALCS, where he's like the best number 2 guy you could hope for in the bot lane position, but he's not. I wouldn't take him for like the guy to build around.
Has Sneaky gone to Worlds more than any other NA player? He might have.
He's gone like every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
gone every year.
As much or more. Yeah. Now.
I feel like he's gone more than anybody else, and so in a sense, Mark, to play devil's advocate or to side with our caller here, I don't know if any of the other players can get you to Worlds as consistently as Sneaky has, because he does it every year.
That's a fair point. He also has only won 2 championships way back in the day.
Yes, but
how many finals he's made.
As Jack said in Twitch chat just now, who cares about winning NALCS? And clearly Jack doesn't, given his recent record, but
Jack officially comes out with the statement, does not care about NALCS finals.
Yes, exactly.
I think from my point of view, so I think Sneaky, you could definitely make the argument, is so I would say it's like this kind of perennial thing where every year during NALCS, everyone overlooks Sneaky a fair bit, and like, yeah, Sneaky's okay, he's whatever. And then at Worlds, everyone's like, Sneaky's incredible. I forgot about him. Double Lift sucks. And that's kind of the cycle that I feel like we go through every year. And I think Sneaky does deserve a lot of credit and has been really solid. And by all accounts, from talking to people, I obviously haven't played on their team, but by all accounts, he has a very good attitude. He's someone that can bring some positivity to the team, that isn't going to like drag you down or have any of the kind of behind the scenes problems usually. So I think that's a really big positive. But for me, I just could not get behind the statement of like first pick, money is not an object, nothing else matters, right? Like I would never make that pick personally, but I think that if you could get him like early on, maybe not first pick, but if you can get him later on, then that's going to be great, right? If you get Sneaky as your second pick, as a second guy on your team, that's an amazing pick, and maybe even later in the first round, I think if you're going through this theoretical draft, and that's how I like to look at that sort of stuff when I'm talking about most valuable in the league, because the whole idea of like, you're talking about Sneaky did well at Worlds because he could be kind of self-sufficient, but they didn't need bot lane to carry. Well, then by definition, they needed somewhere else to carry, right? And if he's your first pick and your other lanes are going to be worse now, like you maybe don't have those other lanes to carry, right? Like to me, it was more about like kind of like Licorice and maybe even Jensen at Worlds this year. But I think Sneaky's certainly an incredible player and has been really consistent.
Yeah. To be fair, I think we're like, we're splitting hairs here. Like, we're talking about literally who we think is the best versus like, I think Sneaky's super good. If you look at like those stupid player rating things I do with Skara, like we have Sneaky in like the 90s for us, and everyone was slamming us for saying this. Like, I think Sneaky's really good. I would probably put him as the second best North American marksman player, right, like behind Doublelift. But I think that there's still like 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know. I have to really think about it. But there's a number of people I put before Sneaky on like who I think you build a team around.
Yeah, I think so. My thought process coming to this idea is that I think teams way too much overvalue talent and undervalue players actually working together as a team. And so, like, maybe I'm taking it a little bit too far when I'm saying he is the best player in NA. And I'm not trying to say he's the best, most skilled player in NA, but I am saying that I do think that teams need to focus more on building teams that can actually work together and actually having team cohesion instead of changing the roster every year and trying to buy the best players and then assuming that that's actually going to work out. And that's why I'm saying, like, Cloud9, they're able to build a good team around a core set of players, and then that core set of players it's driven through their head that if they're not going to work with the team, they're not going to play for the team, obviously by Rebird, and then they're able to work together to improve to go from 10th place to World Semifinals. And I don't think that's possible with players who don't have Sneaky's mindset.
Yeah.
Big agree.
Well, it's worth, by the way, the only thing I would say is, well, we did discuss earlier, and I made the point that, like, Sneaky's gone to Worlds more than anybody else. Jack is also somebody I would draft. If I could draft Jack as a GM or something, like, because he's also gone to Worlds more than anybody else. So it's as much as we want to give credit to Sneaky,
it's doing okay as well.
It's also on the org. What'd you say, Azael?
I said his other teams seem to be doing okay as well.
Yeah, exactly. So. All right, that's a fair.
Also
statement.
agree with Azael, flaming Mark in the chat.
Yeah.
We clearly cannot agree with Mark's list.
For those watching,
I don't even agree with my list.
For those watching the VOD, Jack says check my PayPal. Thank you. For those watching the VOD or listening to the audio version, whenever Mark claimed that Sneaky was tier A with Skara, Zazel in chat pointed out that ranked as tier D.
I gotta look this up because we didn't use numerical tiers. We used number score like the Madden system.
That's a good thing that D is not a number, my man.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's what I'm saying. We can't give D's with numbers.
Yeah, but you said you didn't use numerical.
Sorry. We did use numerical. I'm drunk again.
No.
We gave him the number D.
Everybody else, they're tier 1 through tier 4. Zazel, tier D. All right, like I just.
We didn't do tiers. It's 100 through 0.
Zazel says I'm 75.
He's a 75. He's a C. And this was done before he played.
Congrats on your passing grades, Azael.
If you're in Canada, that's a solid B.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Canadian education system, I understand why Canadians get such better grades. It's because the system allows them to get better grades.
Yeah.
This was I think during the time that they were last place. I fully admit that we 100% are results based with these numbers.
Sea Lion.
But that's not a D. He lied.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, Zazel's a liar, all right?
Zazel's a liar. Yeah, that's the conclusion here.
Sea Lion, any final thoughts here on the way up?
Well, thanks for letting me come on. Sorry if I pissed off Twitch chat, but I just wanted to have my fun.
Literally, everyone pisses off Twitch chat, okay? I could say, like, League of Legends is a great game, and people in chat would be like, hang up, get this guy out of here. I lost my solo queue game earlier. Anyway, thanks, C-Line, for the call.
Well, yeah, thanks, and congrats on the sponsorship, and thanks, Jack, for liking my call.
Very good. Thanks, dude. Have a good one. All right. Moving on to the next caller. We've got 3 more to go. See, look, Twitch chat angry at me right now about saying League of Legends is a great game. All right. So, boy, all right. Liquid with all the spam gifts. Can this work today? Jordan, 11 months. Zeralicious, 2 months. Gully Pete, 4. Ribbon Chew, 7. Then we get into the 50 subs that Steve gifted. Thank you, Steve. Mario, reset for 4 months. C9 get Faker and win worlds. Okay. Let's see. Skachit for 3 months. Brave Sam for 2, Blue Jay 1344 for 9. Kermit Sudoku for 6. Godless 666 for 3 months. Real Foxy gifted a sub to Reginald. Ollie 1 for 3. Dark Cider for 5. Kevin and Zith06. I'll go back to reading some more later, but don't want to turn it into. Actually, Nabskir is here. Nabskir, where are you calling from?
Champagne, France.
From Champagne, France. All right.
Yes.
Well,
wait, I got a question. Do you get mad when people claim that they're drinking champagne when it's not?
No, because they can't.
Okay.
Okay. Nabskir, I'm sorry if I made a comment earlier about EU mid laners coming to North America. I apologize. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
About EU franchising, how I feel there was no hype. There is no hype.
Well,
And why I think it's bad for the region.
So just no hype. And when you say no hype, do you mean like from Riot or just in general, or what do you think?
Yes, the only person I heard about speaking about franchising was Dracos in Euphoria podcast.
Yeah.
And he basically said he couldn't say anything because it was not revealed yet.
So isn't part of this because they haven't announced yet who?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Nothing
who's
has been
in?
officially announced.
Yeah, and with the recent shuffle thing, like with Astralis, Origin, and there is really no hype for me.
Well, go ahead, Mark.
So I was reading some of the stuff that came out today about the rumor. We don't know if it's true, but like Movie Star, like the Spanish org wasn't able to get in last minute or something, and so was another one. And like it seemed like a lot of European fans were mad about that. If it's true, is that something that you're not happy about? That a lot of these orgs are like NA backed orgs, or like they're not quite some of the regional ones people thought would get in.
I don't have any expectation for new teams in UASS. Like I think Fnatic, Misfit, and G2 will still be the leader. So I have no hype for new teams and no expectations for them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my one thing I would say is, try to wait until it's released, and then when it's released, hopefully the orgs will start putting out some cool stuff who do get chosen. But agree, it's always a bummer if you're kind of waiting for the announcement and you're waiting for promotional stuff, you're waiting for rosters, but there hasn't been any info. But the orgs aren't going to be allowed to really announce anything until Riot announces it, and so on and so forth. So hopefully it does start getting hyped up once the official announcement is made. But the wait definitely sucks for sure. I agree.
Well, and it's also it's a fair point to say we're in a weird situation where we've got off season happening, and player trades and stuff might be going to teams where we know nothing, like that team doesn't exist officially, or it's we don't know that team exists. It's kind of a weird situation. I'm trying to remember if any LCS orgs had been announced by now. I think they had last year.
I don't remember.
I think they had because I think they got announced like I want to say it was like around the 11th or something. I don't know, but it feels like they were announced by now. Maybe I was wrong. But it's very interesting. Did you? There was what's this announcement around the rebrand? There's a rumor based off of a trademark that was filed, and Azael can just make his face plain, that EU LCS will be rebranded as LEC. Have you heard about this, or did you see this news, Nabskir?
No, I've not seen it.
Yeah. So there's a rumor it's going to be announced. It's going to be rebranded as LEC. And they have a new logo. So I don't know. I guess if you hadn't heard any about it, then it's maybe not worth being able to talk about. But it's interesting for sure.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Twitch chat. I haven't heard about that. I think the European stuff, I think it's also just like part of a come down where it's like, holy shit, Worlds was so hype and all this stuff. And then like, in comparison, you get to see NA getting hyped already for next year with like some of these roster moves that are coming out, and Europe is like, you're just waiting for that foot to drop. So hopefully, like Travis is saying, when all this stuff gets announced and like players can start talking about who they're getting signed with and that kind of stuff,
yeah,
you'll get a lot more excitement.
But I do agree with you, Napsker. It feels like it would have been really cool if off season officially started at like 5 p.m. today Pacific. That in the very beginning of the day, like when it's afternoon European time and morning NA time, like Riot went live with like, here's all your new teams and here's like a bunch of embargoed interviews and here's all this different stuff that's around the EU LCS teams. Like that would have been really cool, and it would have been a great way to kick off the off season. As it stands, you guys are all kind of in an awkward situation where you're kind of waiting around to be like, wait, so are the rumors true? Is Astralis in? What's this Origin thing? Like, feels like hopefully information's coming soon. So, any final thoughts, Napsker?
The other thing was about why franchising is a bad thing, I think.
Oh, go for it. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to open up a big conversation, but if you want to share, that's fine.
I think it's purely a North American thing, and it's gonna kill a new possible run for Rookie, like Origin 2015, Misfit 2017, and Vitality 2008. So I think overall for the show, it's really bad. I understand that in the short term, it brings money for the new teams and for the region, but Riot should have tried to develop another way to have to bring sponsorship to teams, like for example what Renault and Vitality did in Rocket League, like the sponsor with the naming of
naming rights,
the team.
Yeah, I think the big issue is it's difficult if the team doesn't have, or if the organization doesn't have the stability, right? Like if you think you might leave soon, or you're not part of like a bigger crowd, like franchising allowed investors to come in and feel really confident in their investment. And I don't know if you would have that same thing. I also worry, by the way, that like if franchising didn't hit Europe, that extra investment wouldn't come in, and then NA would be able to pillage the European player base even more than they have for pro players. So I think it's difficult to have both these systems coexist, where you have one that's franchised and one that isn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's right as far as the like 5 players in a dream is kind of dead, right? Like you're not going to have the 5 buddies who play solo queue and climb the ranks and then get all the way to LCS, as a squad. But one thing that is pretty cool about going on in the EU now is EU Masters, right? And that is going to be kind of something that is pretty interesting as far as like a way for rookies to come up and a way for rookies to kind of show that, because you can obviously kind of show your stuff there and then get brought up into the LCS, maybe not as a 5-man squad or whatever, but there are definitely going to be opportunities and kind of avenues for players to do it. Like, obviously in NA, there's the path is now kind of get good at solo queue, go to scouting grounds, do well at scouting grounds, go to academy, do well in academy, go to LCS, right? And I imagine EU is going to have like a similar, but their own unique system, and hopefully it all works out really well. I know EU LCS had a really good year as far as like viewership. Their viewership seemed to be up. They did well internationally, so hopefully franchising and everything works out really well for them.
I think I can definitely agree with Napskier on the point that like if you look at how successful teams that came from relegation are in the European scene, like they're actually relatively successful, whereas like in North America, outside Cloud9, basically no team had ever come from relegations and even gotten sniffed a trophy. So I definitely think franchising made a lot of sense, not only from a financial standpoint in North America, but just from like how the scene operated. The challenger scene in North America was basically getting farmed for like low tier spots in the LCS, which was weird because they were praying for franchising. Like, I think in Europe, it seems like teams actually can become good enough through their own leagues that exist in like each country and stuff like that. But I think I understand what Travis is saying. We're like, one, to make the scenes balanced, it does feel like both need to be, as well as the fact that the orgs that are in the LCS were actively campaigning for it, which I think is important to overlook. Like, this wasn't just Riot deciding what was best for the European scene. Like, Ocelot was very vocal on Twitter and stuff like that about demanding this, as well were a couple, I think like H2K and some other teams were like, we want franchising. So it wasn't just Riot coming down.
Obviously, for the org, it's really good to have to be franchised, but I'm not scared for the pillaging of the player, because like EU player have been going to NA since like 5 years, and NA is still a white card region, so I'm not scared of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's more on a cultural level. Like Europe is the main common culture is based on the Roman Empire. So and their entertainment is basically the gladiator thing. And even though I'm not a bloodthirsty kind of guy, I think you lose the meaning of sport in esport if you can't be relegated, if you are bad. So yeah, I really don't like franchising as a European.
Yeah.
One thing I would say about the relegation stuff is like, if at least how it works in NA is like if you're at the bottom for enough, like for a couple of years, then you can get voted out, you can get kicked out. So there is that, but like I don't think any of these teams want to sit at the bottom. So like the idea that like these shitty ass players can just sit on the bottom team and just kind of like farm their salary forever, I don't think is going to be super true, especially like in the franchising era. Like I can only really speak about NA because that's where it is franchised right now. But I know that a lot of these teams become even more competitive with trying to stay relevant. And you see a lot of teams are making roster changes and doing shakeups because they are trying to compete for the money, right? Like they're trying to compete for the sponsors. They're trying to compete for fans. And teams that are at the bottom very clearly don't really get a lot of the rewards as far as monetary, as far as fandom, as far as like sentiment and all that sort of stuff. So I do still think that there is really heavy incentives to not be a bad team, right? I know everyone puts like Golden Guardians on blast, but if they got 10th, twice in a row, when you look at the amount of fans that a team like that has compared to a team like TL who dumped a lot of money into it, it's night and day, right? And that's why I'm sure Golden Guardians is going to make changes and do things to try to fight for that, because if they sat in the same position and they're just 10th place in a couple of years every split, well, no one's going to care about the team, right?
Yeah. Hey, Napsker, thank you so much for the call.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations for your sponsorship.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Everyone's so nice. By the way, interesting things. Poe Belter, I mean, unsurprisingly, based off our conversation with Steve, he's replaced all of his TL branding on his Twitter. There's a nice picture of a cat up at the top. Again, not related to any kind of sponsorship. But he did tweet "Thank you next," is what he tweeted. Thank you next.
Tiny Cats is getting into the EU LCS.
Yeah,
and Poe Belter's their mid laner.
Yeah, that's those people. Oh, by the way, and I forgot to mention this to our last caller. Sorry, one second, Big Angry Hilper. But if you go to eu.lolesports.com, there's a big countdown on their site that says 7 hours and 35 minutes left. So thank you to whoever in Twitch pointed that out. I missed. I forgot the name.
Announcement.
But it sounds like there's going to be a big announcement in 7 hours. I'll be asleep, but I'll wake up for it.
Greatest non-endemic to the scene. Tiny Cats.
Big Angry Hobo is here. Big Angry Hobo. What do you want to talk about on the show today?
Where I'm from. No,
where are you from?
I'm just from Kent, Ohio.
From Ohio?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sorry, I got distracted. Somebody in Twitch chat put this link in that says Dardock confirmed he's staying on Echo Fox. It's a very confusing time for me, okay? There's a whole lot going on. All the roster stuff, it distracts me.
Travis, I've been a fan since Yahoo.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, not on Gamers?
No, I wasn't a League fan back then.
Yeah.
I don't.
Not very many people.
You missed the glory days.
Yeah.
Must have.
No, State of the League is the old days. Okay. Big Angry Hobo.
So my original topic was for Steve when we thought we were going to ask him, but I was wondering how we think Double Lift and someone with Jensen is going to work together. Kind of with Jensen has always brought like the mid jungle duo kind of, and then Double Lift also wants all the resources always sent to him. I'm a huge Team Liquid fan, so I hope it ends up working, but I'm just kind of wondering how we think it's going to work out that way. And then especially, I don't know if anyone's really talking about this, there's that teleport change where you can't cancel it. So I'm not 100% sure if like that's going to hurt Double Lift in the long run, because it's going to be, people are going to be more afraid to TP bot because they can't cancel if something goes wrong.
Interesting.
I think on the point of Jensen, I think he's fine not getting a ton of resources, because back in spring, they played really heavily around Licorice, and he got like most of the draft priority. Sven went up there fairly often, so I don't think there's a big question in game if they mesh together. Out of game and like behind the scenes, that's always an unknown until you actually put people in the room and put them in a high stress environment.
Yeah. I think the TP thing is an interesting point. I'm not sure exactly who it's gonna help. I mean, I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about it, but like my initial reaction when I saw that change is that it helps the aggressor, right? It helps the team that is being proactive versus reactive, because you can still very easily do the aggressive TP plays. It doesn't really change that. What it really changes as far as bot lane is your bottom lane's getting ganked, your top lane starts to teleport just to basically make the jungler back off, right? Because you can't then cancel that. And if you finish a TP like that and they back off, then you lose too much topside. So like, I think what it is going to help the most is teams that are playing aggressively around bottom lane, and that is really the biggest difference. So that's more of an adaptation thing than I think like a playstyle thing necessarily. But I mean, if you're playing bot lane winning 2v2 and Doublelift is known for being really good in lane, then you're more likely to maybe be able to make those proactive plays. So hard to say though until kind of when I see more of it.
Yeah, especially like if the nerfs just kill teleport, and then it's about skill matchups in the top lane. Everyone's taking ignite and shit. Then like
or
maybe
everyone
that
plays
is
shit in every game.
Yeah, or that globals are a problem.
Yeah, like the only thing I was worried about is teams that when they cancel teleport, where like someone goes to teleport reactionary and then they cancel it because they're being surrounded by 3 of the enemy players, and now they can't cancel it and they're just teleporting into suicide. And I know a lot of times Double Lift, like they would get ganked and then bot like their top would TP to scare them off and they would walk away. But now they don't have to walk away if they know that they're just going to teleport into death anyway.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, again, it's going to probably come down to play style, right? Both teams will have to kind of adapt to that. If you play a winning 2v2, then you may want to be the ones that are making the proactive TP play. But it can go both ways, because if you TP proactively for that 3-man play on bot side and the jungler's waiting in the bush, then maybe it gets turned around on you. So I just think teleport in general is going to be way more risky to use, because you have to be really, really sure when you're going to teleport in, and it's also like you have to be quick, right? Teleports, you have to be reacting instantly, or it's usually too late. So I think it puts a lot of puts a lot of pressure. Well, or it makes it so people only TP back to lane, right?
Yeah.
Which makes it more boring. So that's that's the side that you hope doesn't happen, but certainly could be where people are just like, okay, well, we're just not going to play around bot lane. I'm just going to only TP back to lane and farm.
And back to like the original point of Double Lift and Jensen, if Team Liquid does end up getting another support, I know they can keep Ole, but there's people talking that they might get another support. If they do, that's going to be 2 new players working with Double Lift, and with his such a big personality, him and Ole had a lot of rough time meshing together. Do you think it's a better idea for them to get another support, or do you think now that Ole and Double Lift have finally kind of worked things out, it'd be better to stick with them when already bringing this other huge personality in?
To me, it kind of depends who you're talking about. Like, hypothetically, Mada's on the table, right? Like, I don't know. That's tough. There's not that many Korean speakers now with Pobelter gone. It's only Impact and the coaching staff. Maybe you don't even want Mada.
Papa Smithy earlier suggested Core JJ.
Core JJ, sure. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of options hypothetically. I think you should make sure that you're getting. It's hard to do due diligence is the hard thing. Like, you can't scrim with these people, and you're not going to know how they mesh with Double Lift. So if you're not getting like a big skill upgrade, or if you think Ole was a big problem, just needs to be moved regardless. But I don't think that. So I don't know.
Yeah, personally, I think that keeping Ole would probably be the play, even though a lot of times a lot of people flamed him the entire year. I think just since he's worked with Double Lift for so long, I think it'd be worth it to keep him. Plus, once Jensen becomes a resident, then they can move him around and get 2 different imports if they really want to.
Yep. Very good. Well, hey, thank you so much for the call, Big Angry Hobo. Sorry, I forgot to ask you where you're from, but it all worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Travis. Thanks, Mark.
Have a good one.
Yep, thank you.
All right. One more caller to go. By the way, Jack just retweeted that Rush is a free agent. So would love to see that guy come back home to North America where he belongs. All right. Let's see. Oh, Coach Mike is here. Hello, Coach Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
Where are you calling from?
I am calling from San Francisco.
San Francisco. All right. And what do you coach?
I coach League of Legends, currently a amateur team, challenger amateur team known as Polar Ace.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I know. Yeah, okay.
Mark, you're familiar?
Yeah, they were generally considered the best challenger team, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, congratulations on your success. What do you want to... Oh, what's that?
Surprised somebody knew us is pretty cool.
Gotcha. Well, hey, what do you want to talk about?
So I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit of my perspective, since I obviously am biased as coach, and my perspective basically was that I think it's a lot more important currently, in my opinion, that you surround yourself with a good coaching staff rather than just focusing on specifically the players, because I know that we've been talking a lot about players right now and how they mesh well together, but I feel a very good coach is able to make any players work together on a team and make that team successful. Whereas if you just put 5 really good players on a team with a poor coach or poor staff members in general, it's not going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree a lot with that. And, now's where you can put your contact information in chat. But
exactly.
I mean, I feel you. I think it's definitely true. You have to have a good coaching staff. And I think, like Mark was a coach, obviously. Like I've talked to a lot of coaches and had a lot of experience talking to players and things. One of the things that I think is the most difficult is sometimes even if you have a coach who the team believes in and thinks is really smart, if they don't have the respect of the players, then it doesn't really matter. Like if the players are not actually fully committing to the coach's ideas and are not bought into the system and are not trusting of what they are saying, then it can become really, really difficult. So I definitely agree in that regard, and I think having a coach who kind of commands the respect of the players is extremely important. And
right,
most of the teams that do have success have someone like that, because otherwise, I can tell you Shen is great into this matchup or whatever, but if you do not believe me, if you're going to already kind of with a defeated mindset, then I think it doesn't really work, right? And I'm sure you have experience with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I understand what you're saying. Where like there's almost like a completely different level of hype between the two things. Like in theory, Tony, one of the most celebrated coaches in North American history, getting let go from CLG. There's a lot of talk about that, but it didn't feel like there was as much talk about him joining TSM. Like it was talked about, and there was a fair amount of talk about it. But like compared to the Jensen thing, which just dropped, like the subreddit's going fucking crazy. There's like four things in the top 5 about Jensen, which is like, yeah, coaches are just not as sexy to talk about as players. So like you'll never get the same hype. But I think people should recognize that picking up coaches is really important. And on that topic, does that make TSM the big winner this offseason, getting not only Tony, but also Peter Zhang as their academy coach?
I know both of those coaches, not really personally, but I have known players they've worked with in the past, and I believe it really actually depends a little bit on the core that they're building around, because most of the coaches that are kind of like Zix, who's pretty well known for being a well-respected coach and demanding that respect, it's also important that they have a sort of team leader on that roster that they're building. I've seen a lot of the rosters I've looked at in both amateur, academy, LCS. It seems like they're always lacking some kind of a leader on that team. So if they make any decisions to change that, I really doubt it's going to be anything too significant. But if they do make a change, it's going to be something where they still have that dynamic between the coach is like the overall leader, and then they have the in-game leader, which I think every team should require.
The other thing I would say, though, is like, while I do fully agree coaching is extremely important, and you probably will never be like a top team without a good coach.
Right.
I also think you could have the best coach in the world, and with a shit team, you're not gonna win, right? Like
Yeah.
at a certain point, you need a certain level of talent, right? Like, if you put Travis on the LCS stage, it doesn't matter who's coaching him. He's
Pacoma
probably
literally
he's
standing behind him.
Yeah, like telling him what buttons to press. He's still not going to win lane, right?
What?
So there's the whole
I play
idea that it's like
support. All right.
it's a combination of both, right? Like an incredible team could win almost in spite of their coach. Like from some talks I've heard, some teams say they do, right? Some teams are like, well, we just gotta ignore our coach and pick what we want. And we do
That
our
was like
thing.
TL when Mark was coaching. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect example.
Exactly. That's how you know that can be true.
Yeah.
But I rarely think you can have a really shit team and just like coach them to victory.
Yeah, that's true.
You need a certain level of talent that is like, clearly championship caliber, and then a great coach takes that team and makes them even better, and maybe is the difference between being like a solid team in your region, winning a championship, or winning a championship and getting out of groups or going far in worlds or whatever. But it certainly is like kind of the underhyped piece of the puzzle.
I think on that front, like there's definitely some sports and games that are more like prone to coaching being important. Like I think football is a sport where like you look at what a good coach does for a football org, and it's like unbelievable what they can do because there's so much strategy, it's set plays, they're calling plays, they're like making roster decisions. They have to build like depth from top to bottom so their roster chart actually looks good. Like there's so much there, whereas like compared to basketball, like you just need superstars. You can't really play without superstars. And I think League is a game much closer to basketball, where like at the end of the day, it's a player's game, and like it doesn't matter what you know as matchups as a coach if your player can't play them.
On the contrary, are you familiar with the whole dynamic of the San Antonio Spurs?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of one of the examples that I was actually thinking of bringing up. I don't know if anyone that's really watching this is too familiar with that, but Popovich is really well known for being able to have teams that are considered too old to compete, or kind of a bunch of nobodies, and he's still able to win. I mean, they just destroyed your superstar team last night, a couple of nights ago, where you had, I know Curry was out, but you had essentially a better coach, I think, where they had more defined plays and the players understood their role in a team much better. But they weren't actually better players. It would just seem like they were more well put together as a team and had a better dynamic. And that was just kind of something that really dawned on me.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's exceptions that prove the rule, to an extent, where it's like, okay, you have them, and that's about it. Everyone else is like.
But then look at Golden State, right?
Yeah, look at Golden State, Cavaliers, Heat before them.
Yeah.
Lakers before.
You can definitely elevate a team, and you can make whatever team you have certainly much better. And coaches are extremely important, but I still think you need the baseline talent.
I agree. I think I'd say starting at academy level, most of the players that are in academy probably have the potential to mechanically play in LCS. LCS, or even sometimes on world stages, as you can kind of see with Azael, who moved into that very quickly. A lot of it, I think, depends on how exactly the coach is able to give them the things that they're missing in solo queue, the things that they're missing on their former competitive team or on their former academy team, because there's severe differences, I think, from the high LCS teams to some of the regular tier academy teams, even though the players may be mechanically similar. There's a big difference in my opinion.
Yep. Hey, thank you so much for the call. Any final thoughts on the way out, Coach Mike?
No, I'm just very happy I was able to get on tonight. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. That is the show. No one go anywhere, because I'm going to give out some RP and some subs and stuff at the end here.
I'm going somewhere. I mean, no one go anywhere. I assume Azael's going somewhere.
Can you just not?
Unless we can get some RP, I mean.
Yeah, wait.
I mean, you can. It's a giveaway that's open to a bunch of people. Mark, what do you got here at the end here? What do you want to say? What do you want to throw out there?
I'm excited to see what else happens this off season. We'll of course be here next week to break all that shit down too. Hopefully it's as spicy as everything that's happening tonight.
Oh man, I think like Fion's on Twitter right now saying like, oh man, the super team of all super teams is going to be formed in EU during this off season and all this stuff. So.
I just see a lot of retweets of college football or pro football.
Yeah, we follow different people.
You said Fion. I'm literally looking at Fion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It was linked. It's It's in there. He says like.
Oh wait, it's after a bunch of retweets. There
Yeah, it says it will be the greatest troll in off-season history. Please let it be true. I turned off Fion's retweets a while ago. It makes it a lot easier to.
I didn't realize you could be that specific.
Yeah,
I like regular sports.
He's got his retweets off. He's got Dash muted.
I control my Twitter
This guy's a
stream
monster.
very, very well.
My Twitter is esports news and girls.
Oh, TCS. TCS is happening.
Oh, I am doing that actually.
You're doing TCS?
I think. Well, I'm only doing one thing where like Toast is casting one of them, Disguise Toast, and he asked if I could do it. So I think I'm doing that on Saturday.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that they're happy that you're announcing it.
I don't know what the protocol is here, but I got a Twitter DM late last night from Toast, so we'll see.
Speaking of,
sounds official.
Yeah, that's how the esports industry runs. By the way, it's all on Twitter DMs. I
into it longer.
Have an interview with Cutie Pie and an interview with Tyler One. And an interview with some WWE folks that should be going live over the next couple of days. Jackbite right now says, I hear some crazy EU rumors. What are you hearing, Jack? Let us know.
One specific rumor you've heard. Just for fun.
Give us one. Azael, what do you got? What do you want to promote? What do you want to throw out there, Azael? What's going on?
I don't really have anything. Yeah. I'm looking forward to more of Mr. Off Season's Wild Ride. Looking forward to All Stars coming up. I think that's going to be pretty hype. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Congrats on the sponsorship, and
yeah,
that's about all I got.
Nick Allen in chat says, yeah, EU is going to be crazy.
Man, they're just all the owners just showing up to be like, yo, shit's gonna be wild. Just
Yeah, it's crazy.
Happens.
Yeah, I bet you they're just sitting back, they're sipping their lemonade, they're just watching college football, and they're like, yeah, whatever, our roster's not changing. These guys all think some big thing is happening. I know off-season is so easy. St. Vicious in chat says EU is going to be crazy. Liquid says it will be wild. All right. I know all the team owners during off-season. It's just easy for them. Nick Allen says, Travis, I am drinking lemonade. Okay, cool. Liquid says EU is going to be fucking nuts. We're going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Please don't leave. I'm going to hang out and stream for a little bit afterwards. Thank you to Alienware. Super excited about this announcement. Glad we could finally break it. Thank you to Jensen for trading teams right before the start of the show. That really made my first deliverable to Alienware quite good. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Azael, for coming on. This has been Hotline League, episode 55.